Okay, so I'm Alan Derrick, and the business that I founded that I guess we'll talk about mostly today, the name of the company in the end was Derrick Design and Remodeling. And at the time that I started the business, that really residential remodeling was a kind of a guy with his dog in his pickup truck kind of business, and I saw a real market need. I went and worked for a couple of other people in the construction business, and I learned that there was more money to be made in property rehabilitation or renovation than there was in home building. Although people looked down their nose at people that were in the renovation business and thought of home builders as like, I literally had somebody say this to me. He said, and this before I decided to get in the business, he said, well, remodeling is what you do if you can't build homes, you're not good enough. I saw that there was more profits in the remodeling, and so instead of ending up in the spec house business, what I did was I went and found one of these home builders and said, well, let me sell remodeling for you, and made myself like a salesman for him. It was a pivot. We didn't call them pivots back then, but I got into it thinking that I was going to do home building, and I pivoted and ended up in remodeling. And then there was another pivot to do the design. So there's a lot of things we learn today that have buzzword names to them that we were doing all along. It's kind of cool. I was maybe making $100,000 a year and working a 70-hour week. Very common story. And but I was just high stress, being worked to death. And I found a organization. It's a national organization specific to our industry that had mentoring and peer support network nationwide. And I had them come in and do an evaluation of the business and give me recommendations of ways that I could tighten up. And then they invited me to join that, so I did. And so twice a year I'd fly into a city somewhere in the country, and a bunch of us, about a dozen of us, would come together and work on our businesses for a few days, and we'd break up, head back out. And incrementally over a number of several years, the growth curve started again, but this time it was controlled growth in response to doing things right, as opposed to just trying to land jobs and grow, and very common story for, when you look at what they call it, phase two businesses, that's where it was. And I eventually after about 8 years, I got up to a level where, I was working part-time and making really good money. And by then I was kind of burned out on doing that for a living. I began grooming people within the company to sort of form, I formed a kind of like a club within the company where employees were given an option of being able to get involved in this thing, and it acted like a board of directors and sort of mimic that process where we would come together and have a board meeting and talk about the direction of the company and problems, that kind of thing. And certain people within that sort of began to rise up and sort of kind of get buy-in on what the company was about. And then I started making sounds that I would need to leave before too long, that I really need to move on. I don't want to do this the rest of my life. And so then I started kind of looking for, leadership, and there was somebody there. Eventually we gave him the position of the president of the company. He had earned more stock, and we had him go back and join that same group that I was in. So he went back and started going to that group. And so eventually I left, and a year later, then I got the last that I got paid off, and that worked out real nice as part of the negotiations. In 2 months after I got out, the economy collapsed and the construction industry went to hell. 2 months after I got every penny out. And so I said, I just got to get back involved in community. So last year, I got myself in and started visiting these things like Hot Coffee and Will This Fly by Rocket Hatch, and signed up as a coach at the Women's Business Center in North Alabama, and met some people at UH and all. And so over time, I sort of kind of got to know what the business community support network, the nonprofits, are all about. And one thing that just shocked the hell out of me was that there wasn't a program like the one I was in here. And so I got that in and said, well, there's my niche. There's what I can do to give back and have fun and get joy, and I just love business, immerse myself, but I can't talk enough about it. I talked to some of these different groups. I wanted some umbrella organization to be involved in, and Antonio Montoya needed something like that to help try to round out the program at Rocket Hatch, and so he basically drafted me to do that. Some of the people in the steering committee were talking about, well, what is this, right? I said, well, it's not really a support service. It's not everybody was kind of throwing out there, and one guy, he was actually somebody that was Skyped in, said this is a brain trust. It's an interconnected group of people. It's like the power of all these brains together instead of one. And in there really lies the strength in the brain trust, and that is you get a room of people that are all entrepreneurial in spirit, that all have all sorts of different experiences and backgrounds and education, but they've all have to do with business, and one person brings an issue out. The power of all those people together is so much more than any one individual. It will be a whole lot harder than you think it's going to be. It will be hard work, and people will not beat a path to your door because you got a better mousetrap. Don't take a great idea and try to go find a customer. That almost never works. Instead, what you want to do is you want to find a problem, a customer that's got an issue, a need, or something that can be improved on, and you go develop a solution to that problem. You build a solution to the problem. But if you're focused on the customer and doing whatever you need to try to zone in and zero in on what the customer needs, you have a lot greater chance of success.